Welcome to the land of dreams and madness, where children's stories come to life. I'm Max.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Luke.
And this is Force for Thought. Hello and welcome back to Force for Thought. We just finished watching Ahsoka episode 6 and holy cow, I know it sounds like we're beating a dead horse here, but I'm going to have to give it another 10 out of 10. Matt?
Every episode just gets better.
Luke?
Again, another 10. Easy call.
They keep knocking it out of the park. Holy cow. Okay, where to begin? We get Thrawn, we get Ezra, we get Night Troopers, which were insane.
Night Sisters.
The Great Mothers. Oh my gosh. So let's just start from the beginning.
Oh my gosh. Are they called Night Troopers?
Yeah.
Yeah, Night Troopers.
From the Night Sisters? Oh, it flows so well.
It does. It all makes sense. And this is, real quick, before we go from the episodes, I almost feel like in theaters last week, they should have done a double feature of last episode and this episode. Because last episode, there was all this hype that it was going to be the best episode. Dave Filoni's directing it. Maybe we hyped it up more than anything. And even though it was fantastic, right, because we have this Hayden Christensen, we get Darth Vader. It was great. There's literally no complaints on my end from that. We get the Clone Wars flashbacks. And yet, I think this is the moment, these moments have what we've been waiting for this entire show so far. So even though last week was so stellar, this week I would say is equally as stellar for different reasons.
I think almost more stellar for different reasons.
I agree, yeah.
Last week, I agree. And it's interesting because last week our episode wasn't that long because really only the one thing happened in the episode and it was absolutely amazing. And I love watching it. I've already watched it like 100 times. But I feel like this one was just so substantive where there wasn't a whole lot of flash this episode, but you just... Oh, that's not even true. I mean, how could you not say that this is Flash?
I know.
I'm staring at the TV right now, and we have it paused on this army of Night Troopers and Thrawn walking down a procession of them.
Would you say it's reminiscent of the Emperor getting on the ship?
You know, I think there might be an Easter egg in there.
Sorry, that's one of my favorite running gags now is me consistently asking if it's a reminiscent of something that's obviously it's obviously just...
But it was, I mean, there was just so much fat to chew on this episode. It's a lot of... I've been deconstructing in my head a little bit of why last week's episode was a little, again, it was 40-something minutes. It's 10 minutes shorter maybe, but there's something, and we were also very enthusiastic, but there's something You mean our episode, the Force for Thought episode?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, the other episode was 52 minutes, the actual Ahsoka episode. And I think it's because you're right, we are in this one long continuous kind of story and it's hard to break up. Where even now where I'm thinking of like, when Sabine and the Howler, not to jump too far ahead, but when we just get a moment, right, of them separating and walking away from each other, and it's like a little comedic beat, but it's also a little heartfelt, and it's like that. Just those little moments build up the story and the world so much more. And I'm also not excited to see that Howler either die or just not make it with Sabine.
Seems like Ezra is not a fan of the Howlers.
So they seem to be
surprised.
A villainous type creature, presumably.
Yeah.
And also, Ezra, I know, again, we should go in order a little bit, but Ezra is beyond just being kind of a cute boy, a cutie.
He's a cute man.
Yeah, I think he has that boyish charm, though. Like, everything has changed, and yet nothing has changed.
It was so weird seeing him with a beard, because I know you have that one scene in Rebels where he's in a beard and like a flash forward kind of thing. Yeah. But I remember when they were doing the casting for Ezra, and everyone thought it was going to be the actor who plays Aladdin, because it's the only mainstream famous Middle Eastern 20-year-old guy that anyone knows.
And it was like really popular at the time.
Yeah, and then they showed this actor who no one knew, but everyone looked at him and was like, yep, that looks exactly like Ezra, so that's going to be perfect. And honestly, I think he looks less like Ezra now just because he's got his beard and his outfit was so outlandish, but it's great casting, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
He's nomadic now, but his outfit was also at the same time very reminiscent to me of a Jedi. It felt, maybe it's because like you associate that
He's got robes.
Yeah, like with like classic like Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine, right, where he's a nomad too, kind of in that rugged garb, but still the Jedi robes, whereas this wasn't necessarily like a robes, but it still had like that kind of flowy vibe to it.
Sorry, Max, I threw us way off. go on with the beginning.
You're good. So, yes, let's start at the beginning. Let's start with Ahsoka and Hu Yang blasting off through hyperspace, a different type of hyperspace. Yes. So,
that was so exciting.
That was so exciting.
We all said, write that down for some reason. Like, one of us would forget. Like, I don't know why we said
it
that. It
looks marginally different. I want to talk about it.
I know. I do, though.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful.
What does that mean? Let's overanalyze. So they travel presumably at speeds faster than what we've seen other hyperspace travel?
I assume all the colors mean faster. Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
So. And then we got that nice little back and forth with Hu Yang and Ahsoka, and I absolutely love that intro. And listen, I feel like it could have been done so McClunky by anyone other than Dave Filoni. Yep. But because he wrote it, that line with Hu Yang starting the story, taking place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I was so happy with that line.
Yes, and it's because it's earned. They set the stakes up 2 minutes prior when they're talking about the story, and it's exactly what you would say when you begin a story. And it's not. It could have easily been a what's your last name? Oh, I don't know, and then just a solo moment, right? It could have been that, but it's not. But then also, what are the implications? I know I said this jokingly, but what are the implications of like that? Every movie starts like that. The show doesn't. What is the implications that he knows that? I mean, I know it's just like a fun bit, and it's like, oh, he said it, but like,
it's also
what does it mean?
It also speaks well to the show that like everything up to now was the prelude.
Yes.
Basically, like the show is basically starting right now. This is where we're getting all the meat.
And they also the Hu Yang line I like a lot. I mean, in the beginning, it's just a jokey line, which is intergalactic space travel in a whale. Now I've done it all.
Yeah,
good
coming from a person who's been around for thousands of years.
Yes,
yeah,
900 according to this show though.
And there was another good 900 years.
I think that's what he said. 900 something years.
He said he hasn't seen a lightsaber like Balin Skull's in I think 500 years.
Okay.
Canonically, he is like 25,000 years old.
That's what I thought.
And there was also that other good line that you wrote down between Hu Yang and Ahsoka.
Yes, which is no Thrawn, no war, but no Ezra.
Is it worth it?
I know. Yeah. And, as from the viewer, yeah, it's very worth it. This is all I want to see. But
right.
It is,
but not much of a TV show.
I know. I'm like a little heartbroken for Ezra to realize what Sabine actually has done just to save him. And at the same time, massive flattery, obviously, to save him. But it's one of those things where I feel bad, not to jump too far ahead, but it's more about the overall arcing show and kind of the grand spectacle of it, is that Ezra said it's taken you long enough, right? He's expected his friends to come find him, and unfortunately, Sabine is the only one who still continues. Yes, Hera does as well. Obviously, she has a child, so her time's taken up, but she is doing things in a different way. She's becoming a general, and she's trying to use her resources in order to find Ezra. We're not sure what Zeb's plan is with finding Ezra.
Well, no, it was always Sabine's journey, because Ezra left that extra message for her that he's counting on her to come and find him and see this through.
That's true, but it's still so sad, I feel like. The fact that she's the only one and she finally did, but what she had to do in order to find him is to potentially cost the galaxy at least a war, as we know that is coming.
Yeah, and I feel like Ezra's been around long enough, and maybe he just got rose-tinted goggles seeing Sabine again, but when he says, like, how'd you get here? What's going on? And she's like, let's not talk about that right now. It's like,
I know.
Why not, Sabine?
Yeah, you really got to have a conversation real soon.
Yeah, it's going to come up at some point. Rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about, that was all we saw of Ahsoka this whole episode, actually.
Yep, which I think is perfect.
Yeah.
We got a lot of her last episode, so it was nice. You kind of interlude with her, and then we just, we get on with it.
And then we cut back to Sabine's storyline, obviously with Morgan Elsbeth, Balin Skull, and Shin Hati. They arrive at Peridia, which we find out is apparently a graveyard to the Purrgil. It's where they come to die. Yeah. They come to the planet. They are greeted by, what do they call them? I almost said grandmother.
The Night Sisters?
Yeah.
The mothers, though, or something special. Great Mothers?
Great Mother, was that what it was? The Night Sisters. 3 Night Sisters who are here on Peridia and have been aiding Thrawn, assisting, advising. We don't exactly know that story yet. But I absolutely loved that fake out, though, where they imprison Sabine. She's sitting in that cell, and she's trying to use the Force once again. And I bought it. I thought for a second, okay, I think this is like the 3rd time they showed it now. So I was like, oh, rule of 3, right? She's going to start using the Force now. And then it starts moving. And I was like, okay, here we go. They've been building up to this. And it was a fake out. And it was Thrawn arriving on his Star Destroyer, the Chimera, What an entrance that was.
I know. On the page, that's just like, and then Thrawn shows up in his Star Destroyer and picks them up. But on the screen, that scene was so awesome.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that meme from Lord of the Rings where Peter Jackson said to Howard Shore, the guy writing the music, that, all right, this scene's just 9 guys in a pony walking past a rock. No need to make it that epic. And then on the screen, it's like one of the most amazing visuals of all time with the music. And that's how I felt watching the Chimera arrive. I was like, oh my God. Like, I knew this obviously was the next beat, but it is so cool.
It's battle torn as well. It's got gold plating over it. Also, the gold ship that they take down is great with
from the Eye of Sion.
Yes, it's so cool. I mean, the whole show is visually striking. Like, it does not seem like they're filming the volume again. I don't have a problem with the volume, and I know that's a big complaint, but it does feel different for some reason. I don't know. It's not like they shoot Mandalorian quick. I believe they said that it takes 30-something days to film one singular Mandalorian episode, so they're not shooting quick. It's just this is just so cool looking, and I'm not sure there's more going on. And I saw, I think we talked about it, how like Andor is like the best when it's like grounded and gritty, and this is the best when it's embracing the all the fantastical elements part in it. And I think both of those shows, what they have in common, why I think they're both going to be our favorites, right? I can say that probably Ahsoka's going to be like 1 or 2 next to Andor.
I don't know how bad these next 2 episodes would have to tank for me to not say that this is one of my favorites.
Yes. Okay. So same.
I agree.
All right. In agreement then. But the fact that we're able to see so many different locations all the time. And so it's not like Book of Boba Fett when you're in that town, which is fine that you're in that town, right? The entire time. But like the fact that we can see, we can see the ship and the Eye of Sion. We can see, I guess, technically, this is kind of it looks like kind of the same set with the Night Sisters, where Hera was last seen, I guess, as well. But we're able to see all these different locations, I think, in a singular episode, which makes it super interesting, and we are able to cut between characters, which I absolutely love.
We get a lot of good Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati content for the first time in a long time. At the same time, I kind of feel like we didn't learn that much because we knew Baylan Skoll was a Jedi. We know he's doing something in his mind bigger and better than Thrawn, unrelated to Thrawn, and we knew that Shin Hati is his apprentice. They didn't really develop the characters further, but boy, are they making me more and more intrigued every time they're on screen.
I agree, and it also kind of begs the question of like Shin Hati is going along with Baylan Skoll knowing next to nothing about him or his plan, which is making me question kind of why she's there. Like, it feels like if he has like a great cause, or like how do they find each other? Like, I'm really interested in all of that, to be honest. Like, there's so much backstory that I'm like, how did you guys meet? And then, how did you meet? Like, he had to have saved her or something and being able to train her. Like, I'm wildly interested. With that being said, even if we get a backstory, they're just having these conversations now. So that's also, it's not like Morgan is the one who brought them together, presumably. It's just, they're kind of a duo set.
Yeah, because there was that interaction where Baylan said that Ezra was trained as a Jedi after the fall of the Order, and Shin said, kind of like me, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I trained you to be so much more than that, or something. But it was like in a way that she still doesn't even understand. So it's like a lot of things are being left in the dark. There was a way that they cut to Baylan when they were putting Sabine in that little jail cell or whatever.
When they referred to her as it? That was
yeah.
icky.
Yes, it will wait in solitude.
There was a way that they cut to Baylan that I was like, ooh, there's something going on inside him. I don't know if he's fully bad, if he's faking it, but then I'm like, but he also slaughtered all those people in that first episode, but he also told them they were making a mistake. I don't know what his motives are, but clearly he has a very, very strong motive, and the more they hint at it, the more it's killing me.
I know, and the worst part about it is that we're not going to get presumably we're not going to get any sort of resolution to it unless they, everything kind of goes copacetic with these, and they're set up for season 2, and then, we cut to 6 months, a year later, and Baylan is unfortunately passed away, and then we get Shin Hati taking over his kind of goal. Like, is the only way I can see it play out, because I don't see it ending in 2 episodes. And
I am going to throw out a wild prediction here, because there seems to be a lot more conflict in Baylan Skoll than there does in Shin Hati. When Shin Hati is doing something evil, she seems to enjoy it, whereas Baylan doesn't seem to be getting that same emotion out of it. Like I said, in that very first episode, when he was telling the captain, Hale, you are making a mistake, it seems genuine.
I agree.
So I think there may be a splitting of ways between Shin and Balin where maybe they don't see eye to eye in the end. Maybe Balin reveals what he's been training Shin Hati for this whole time, and she disagrees with him and she kills him. Who knows? I think there's going to be a splitting of ways. I don't think he's going to make it past this season.
I don't think so either. I also really enjoyed the scene on the shuttle, the cool gold ship that you mentioned from the Eye of Sion, when Shin Hati is just staring down Sabine. That gave me goosebumps. Like, Sabine, you should apologize right now for trying to hurt her. I am fully on board with Shin Hati. I am off the Sabine train.
Oh my God. Cyril, now this. Something else that I liked about Balin's kind of monologues were the ideas of cycles and how it's the rise of the Jedi, and then does he say the rise of the, what does he say? The rise of the Jedi and
the fall of the Jedi and the rise of the Empire, and then it repeats.
And and the cycles. I think I love that, and I love how he wants to start at the beginning. I was like, man, it's a really powerful phrase, because I feel like that is what we see all the time, and it's very entertaining to watch.
It is. It's like what Maz Kanata said in The Force Awakens. I've seen evil take many faces. First the Sith, then the Empire, now the First Order. And so it's that same kind of sentiment, just so much more captivating when he says, I'm going to break the entire cycle and start with something new.
Yeah.
What does that possibly mean?
And it is interesting given the context of we know the First Order comes, so we know whatever it is, Balin's school is ultimately going to be unsuccessful at it.
Unless it's in this galaxy.
Or maybe it is the First Order.
Or maybe it is the First Order. Yeah, he's just kind of was like, well, my plan didn't work out, but I can pretend like this was it the entire time.
Yeah, I hope that. It's like a full 180. It's like, all right, let's just bring back the Empire. Screw it. I'll take the fleeting.
Maybe Balin's call is Snoke. He's not.
Every episode, you throw out a theory that I have to go like, no.
Yeah, what was it the other day?
It's something every time. I don't know. I can't think of them all.
Either.
Riva. It was like Riva was Merrick or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, something just nonsensical. But it makes me think for a second, and I'm like, no, there's no way that
we got to move on.
That's what's fun. No idea is a bad idea.
Well, there's no stupid questions, there's just stupid people, that type of thing. All right, let's talk a little bit then about what happens next, which is the arrival of Thrawn. We see him march down a procession of what are called night troopers, all chanting Thrawn. We talked about it a little bit.
Not Shadow Troopers? I thought it said Shadow Troopers.
No, it said night troopers.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote that down too.
We I think talked about it a little bit as we were watching it in live time, but I think they very clearly had Marok be that little like hint of what was to come, because I think as soon as he died and you saw that kind of puff of green smoke, you're like, okay, he must have been some sort of like undead version of what brother was it that died in the Rebels?
I think eighth brother.
Some sort of undead version of that Morgan Elsbeth or a different Night Sister somehow resurrected. And now we have these night troopers who I am predicting, and I think pretty strongly implied, that they are an army of undead stormtroopers that have been resurrected through Night Sister magic.
Yeah, there's so many cool places this could go. I'm just imagining all of the implications. Like, Thrawn's going to come back to this galaxy, and the Imperial Remnant is going to be like, yeah, Thrawn, let's reunite. And then they're going to see his army and be like, ugh, I don't like this. And then Thrawn could just like kill him and take him anyway to be his army. That would be cool. The design of them, how they kind of cobble together their armor, like fixing Kylo Ren's mask in The Rise of Skywalker, is awesome. Their red tinsel all around. Yeah. We thought those Black Series holiday figures were just like a fun holiday thing, but maybe it was alluding to this.
Yeah, that was it. There was a line at the end where Thrawn talks to Morgan about not needing a third battalion or something. Am I misremembering that line where he's like,
no, he said 2 squadrons will do, and she says, why don't we send more to kill them all? He says 2 will do. Fine,
okay.
Because we don't have, because he said that something like we lost a lot of people and we don't have many.
Yeah. What are they fighting against?
Which is like classic Thrawn, though. I mean, he's very pragmatic, right? He's I know, but I also was like
super on board when he said our main goal is getting back to the Prime Galaxy or whatever the good galaxy is.
Yeah.
And
Star Wars proper.
Yeah. And he said we can kill Ezra and Sabine or leave them here. It makes no difference. And for that matter, same with the mercenaries. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Why don't you just shut the door and be done with them now?
Yeah. The entrance of Thrawn is exactly what I wanted it to be. You were talking about him marching down in the procession, but also the music. There is this these organs that are playing in the background, like these pipe organs that are haunting in its own right, and I catch it every single time. It's not even like a spooky theme. Like the Vader theme is very iconic. Obviously, that is like done with the same instrumentation as the rest of them. As like the same thing with the Leia theme, but like this specifically just has a different tone to it for Thrawn, and I think just that music in the background carries such a heaviness. And then when he's finally, seen and he's talking, it's like, yep, that is the Thrawn that we know because of his voice. He looks a little different, but also time has passed, right? And so it's like,
yeah, exactly. They get a real magic erase marker to kind of wave their hand at, no matter what.
Yep.
If he doesn't look perfect, you can say that.
And then they double down with it with Ezra with the beard too. So it's like it literally feels cohesive, and it's not like, oh, this guy doesn't look exactly like Thrawn because he's not as jacked or something. And it's like, well, I would rather have the voice, I think, and have this than kind of shoehorning in a random voice and then being able to, I don't know, do a little bit more physically. But like Thrawn isn't as scary because he is physical. I mean, he can throw down and fight. We've seen it a lot in Rebels. But I think what is spookier about him is the fact that he is so calculated, and like the decisions to leave the mercenaries. I know that doesn't matter because he doesn't care about them one instance, but like it is that decision making off the cuff. He's just like, yep, we can leave whoever here. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree that bringing back Lars Mikkelsen for the voice, because Thrawn's voice is so distinct and iconic, you got to go with the same voice. But I did have the same thought. Like, he was yoked in Rebels, and this guy is
bloated.
Not.
Yeah.
He's not like overweight, but he's far from elite fighting shape.
Yeah.
But I think that's worth it. I don't think that that'll be like a story element that he like let himself go in exile. But
it's just been a couple years.
Yeah, it's kind of the trade-off of having the same voice actor, and I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, too, that the animation is stylized, right? So,
like the sharp jawline and stuff, like is that you're talking about, like how sharp he is?
yeah, but I mean, like, just look at, like, I think Clone Wars is a better example because Clone Wars has a lot more characters that you see in live action. I mean, like, look at Clone Wars Mace Windu. Like, you don't look at that and just be like, oh, yeah, that's obviously Samuel L. Jackson. Like, it's a stylized version of them, right? So I don't mind when things come from animation to live action and they look a little bit different.
I know. At the same time, I agree with you, but also then there's Hera, who looks the exact same by all standards. So they can do it, but sometimes but they got a different actor than Vanessa Marshall. So you either take the likeness or the voice. And so it's a trade-off. I think they're doing it right every time so far.
They can. You're right. And I think another example of that is Chopper. I think Chopper, I am amazed with how well he translated from animation to live action. But yeah, you got to think about it the other way around, right? Like if like the Clone Wars again, going from live action to animation, no one was upset with the stylization choices that they made. I understand that they can't make everything come directly from animation to live action, so you have to accept a little bit of the fact that animation is inherently stylized.
And then the main night trooper is so cool with his face.
Yeah.
Enoch.
Is that how you say it? I wrote Zanuki for some reason.
That's not correct.
It was definitely written as Enoch.
Yeah.
I forget how they say it exactly.
Eunuch.
But
yeah, it was
with that being said,
ENOCH.
The lights were off, and I have bad handwriting.
That's true. Maybe you did write that correctly.
Yeah, he has a face. That looked awesome. I have no... It's like how we were talking about Captain Rex in the last episode. It's like just looking at him, it's like, oh, why do you like that one more? It's because he looks cooler. What are you talking about? Like, look at him. It's awesome.
Have you ever been a child and thought like that? Because I'm still in that state of mind.
Exactly.
A great Thrawn line, and this is not exactly word for word because I also wrote Zanuki, so who knows. But when Thrawn's talking to Sabine and he says how that singular action will shape the galaxy, it's so haunting. And I don't think he says action; it's a singular motive or something. I don't know, but that is so haunting.
He is confident. He knows that he is about to come back and change everything.
I know. And it's like, not why has Ezra done nothing, but like I need to know. Obviously, I see why. But like when they were
Ezra did everything. You bite your tongue. What are you talking about?
When
he got him here.
I know.
Still had an army, and Ezra was just Ezra.
I know, but I'm wondering like what happened between then. Obviously now Ezra is kind of walking with these turtle people, and going from base camp to base camp because they can't stay anywhere for too long. So I wonder what other threats are out there. As well, and what other creatures and what they have to hide from, because it is weird that he's just kind of exiled into this, not even his like species or anything. Who knows what else is out there? I feel bad. He's just kind of like by himself, just waiting.
Yeah, he seemed to be the leader of this little turtle tribe.
Yeah.
So he's doing it well. I wonder if the turtles were really thriving before him. Maybe there's a nice little story about how he united all the turtles under one banner. A little Game of Thrones kind of story where he shows up and unites them. I've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones.
Have you really? No, Game of Thrones is great. Honestly, I was going to mention Game of Thrones because this episode specifically reminded me a lot of it, especially with Sabine on the Howler kind of galloping through. It was very much like medieval times, and honestly this whole like barren landscape. Usually we're used to sand in Star Wars, Tatooine, and I feel like we're kind of treated as something a little different here where everything is breezy and gray skies and grassy, and this whole show has been moody. But this specific galaxy and planet that we're introduced to is so vastly different. But in her riding that Howler and just like her meeting these like samurai Tusken Raiders is what I would compare them to. In the middle, it just feels very medieval-esque or Game of Thronesy. What season of Thrones are you on?
Well, it's actually a funny story because in true Gen Z fashion, I am not rewatching Game of Thrones. I am simply seeing 6 different Game of Thrones TikToks a day from various seasons and episodes. So.
All right, never mind. I don't like I asked that question, and that was the answer to it.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Sabine and the Howler fighting off I believe Luke referred to them as we were watching it, the not skin raiders, the Tusken raiders that are just a little more samurai. I don't know how you explain them, but they do sound the same.
I was mixing not and Tusken. I was not saying Nazi raiders, which is kind of how I heard it. I hope that's not how you.
Is that how it sounded like when I just said it now?
It did.
That's how I heard it.
When you first said it, I heard it as not skin raiders, as in like they were skinless.
No, I was just trying to say not Tusken Raiders and mesh the words together. But they look awesome, and they have helmets on. They're going to be. I think there's going to be some sort of reveal on who's underneath the helmets, if it's some sort of rebellion against the Thrawn army or something like that. But Ezra's not with them. I wonder if he's met them. I think there's going to be a lot of good story to tell there. But let's go back to the other galaxy. I didn't really want to spend that much time here. I was hoping it would just be like a pit stop and they would pick them up and turn around. What are they even doing to prepare for their journey back home? I thought they could literally just turn around, dock the Star Destroyer, and go. But Thrawn is like, we have to make preparations.
I think they're loading from the catacombs, right? They're consistently loading the bodies, right?
The army of the dead.
What was that catacombs? Did they bring the catacombs from the other galaxy in the Eye of Sion to Thrawn?
I think they're loading. That's like their docking station, so they're bringing up all the catacombs into the Star Destroyer so that they can then dock the Star Destroyer with a bunch of new bodies, then go back to the Star Wars proper in order to presumably resurrect them and have a bigger army. It was my understanding of what they're doing.
Okay, but they don't want to resurrect them all right now because
they
expire. Something.
Maybe
they expire.
Real quick, going back,
got to keep them all on ice.
When who I would call Zanuki said, setting off Sabine on the Howler when he says "die well," what a brutal line.
Yeah,
Maul says that too to Gar Saxon in the Siege of Mandalore when he says we need reinforcements, and Maul's like, "Nah, I'm done. Die well, Mandalorian."
It's a great line.
Yeah, that's right. He does.
That's good. Anyway, sorry. Go on with the Tusken Raiders or not skin.
No, that was it. I just wanted to address it. It was cool. We got to see some action with Sabine using her blasters as well as a lightsaber. I like that beat a lot.
I think there's like a 1% chance, but I would love to see it happen that Sabine gives Ezra back his lightsaber and he just pulls out another one. He's like, actually, you can keep it. I made one while I was here, so we both have a lightsaber now.
But it's just a stick, and he's clearly gone crazy.
He makes the vroom vroom.
Could you imagine? Like, oh no, what happened?
That's why Thrawn's not worried at all. He's like, no, seriously, we can just leave that guy.
He is no longer a threat.
Yeah.
There was a lot of neat little lore things that was not that new, but I loved. There was the rolly blast door on the Eye of Sion.
Yes.
Instead of a up and down blast door, it just kind of rolled to the side.
I like the sound effects.
I imagine that was for cost-cutting reasons.
They didn't want to CG the blast door going up and down.
Oh, no, I meant for the actual construction. Yes.
Well, no, because they made the whole transport shuttle out of sheer gold, it looked like.
Yeah, it's true.
That's
And
true.
the ships.
No expense.
Can you imagine how heavy that would have to be, the blasters, to hold that golden ship up?
Yeah. If Donald Trump drove around in any ship in Star Wars, it would have been the Eye of Sion.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about this last week also. The droids on the Eye of Sion and then on Thrawn's Star Destroyer, the Chimera, they all have like an evil voice, which makes sense. But like, do they program these droids differently to be with bad guys? Because if you had like a C-3PO sounding droid in there, it would not fit the aesthetic at all. Vice versa. If they had those droids in the Rebellion or something, because they do sound evil and menacing, but they're just droids. Do they program in this way? Is it like Siri where you can select their voice?
I'm going to say yes, because Max always brings this up. It's the equivalent of having a motorcycle like vroom all the time. It's not needed. They can cut the vroom out.
Yeah.
But they just want it there.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I think it's a vibe thing. Yeah.
They choose.
They choose, yeah. You have to set the tone.
And it works.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit then about the Teenage Mutant Not Ninja Turtles.
They're cool.
They kind of look like Turgle from Jedi Survivor. That's who I thought first. And then they also kind of look like Colonel Gascon from the Clone Wars.
Yes.
But I don't know if it's really either of those species or if it's something new. Either way, I'm excited. I love seeing new creature designs. The hermit shell thing was definitely new. That was a really funny beat.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it was. The not to skip for. I mean, I like those things. I like the rebel symbol, and they recognize that. I think it's a really smart plot device to move the story along, and for them to inevitably, to end up being in this little turtle town, and then, Ezra just casually shows up, which is a great, contrast into this huge, entrance for Thrawn. We just get this subtle. He blurred out in the background. He just has his line. Took you long enough, and we finally then see him, and he's just. Exactly that kind of that boyish charm, but a little bit more grown up. And
I thought we were going to see him this episode, even like during that scene. I thought we were going to see him later this episode. But I said as they got to that village, like, oh, those little shell huts are too small for Ezra to live in. He's not going to be here.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything about that, but I don't know why you thought that. Those were plenty spacious enough.
What are you talking about? They were designed for those little turtle people. Ezra's like 3 times their size.
I mean, it was like the size of like a tent or something. I mean, he could still live in it. It's not like the most comfortable thing in the world.
I think he's kind of doing the tiny home thing.
Yeah, it's just the latest.
Definitely a tiny home thing.
It's the latest trend in this new galaxy.
I guess he doesn't really have the option to live luxuriously given his circumstances. But.
Or if he has the stick saber, maybe he does, and he's an outcast like dullard of the town.
all these little turtle hermit people are actually taking care of Ezra. They are the caretakers of him.
That's funny. I also love the line, "Always a plan, never a good one." That's a great line.
Yeah,
and I like that. I think that sums up the Ghost crew, honestly, in general. Well, maybe not always, but they always do have a plan. It's just not always a good one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to die by that. Yeah, it is a good.
One line I really liked was when they announced Ahsoka's arrival, and Thrawn just said, "That is unwelcome news."
Yes. The way he said it felt like Office Space or something. Like he paused, and it was just like I wanted to add a laugh track in there.
He is not very easily startled, and that shows.
Well. That's a bummer.
There was a line that I liked too from Thrawn where he said, "Death and resurrection are not just tricks of Night Sisters and Jedi."
Did you write that down? I cannot believe you remember that. After he said it, I wrote the first 3 words down. I was like, I can't get that quote correct. I loved it.
Yeah,
though.
it was awesome. And again, heavily implies because I mean, is it just safe to assume that this is an army of the undead?
Yes, absolutely.
I feel like there's going to be a bunch of speculation.
Arrogant to really hang our hat on it in case we're wrong. But
no, I'm hanging my hat on it.
Like the catacombs, like you saw them like moving what were presumably bodies in there. He talks about death and resurrection. We've seen it with Marok.
Marok, yeah.
I feel like it's pretty confirmed at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I also just love the combination, the Ezra and Sabine reuniting scene. I thought it was very nice. It wasn't, they talk because it's like an awkward moment, presumably. And then they finally end up hugging, and it's like this nice little release. It's like, oh, finally. They finally got there. But it's like after all that time, after all that hardship, they finally found each other. And it's it's heartwarming, and yet it's going to be devastating 10 minutes into the next episode.
I know. Sabine's going to be talking, and she's going to cut to Ezra. You what?
Yeah.
You what?
Yeah.
We're going to cut back. Actually, it's going to be the end of Hu Yang's story.
Yeah, because
get on with it. I want to see.
He asked Sabine, like, did it work? Which, like, implies, like, oh, did we defeat the Empire and all that stuff? And it does. But at the same time, it's like, well, that Thrawn still exists, right? I mean, he should still know that Sabine is now here with him and that Thrawn is also here as well.
That's what I want to know, what happened after the events we saw Thrawn and Ezra, because what leads him to believe that Thrawn is presumably Thrawn, he knows Thrawn's not dead. He has to see that Star Destroyer. Clearly, he probably saw that Star Destroyer.
Ezra?
Yeah.
I mean, he was in the Star Destroyer.
No, I mean currently. Like, he knows that Thrawn is still very much there. So, like, presumably, Ezra's first question is going to be, how do we get back? And then, obviously, it's going to be like, well, obviously, Thrawn is a massive threat to not only this galaxy, but, Star Wars proper as well.
Yeah, because did Ezra somehow arrive to this planet under the presumption that Thrawn was dead, and then that he just left and Thrawn wasn't dead? I mean,
I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Matt. It's something that I've talked about on previous episodes. They didn't just fly away to this galaxy far, far away, and then we're just like, all right, stalemate. Like, let's just go our own ways and live like our own lives now. Something had to have happened. So yeah, like, what is Ezra's understanding of what happened to Thrawn? Is Thrawn undead? Was he brought back to life by these Night Sisters as well? I mean, who knows? There's a bunch of different things that could be.
Do we get a flashback?
I don't think that's possible. I don't think it's a very.
I don't think it is the case.
I don't think it's a very complicated story like you keep implying. I think they took the Purrgil in the Star Destroyer to this galaxy, landed on this planet, and then before Ezra let go of Thrawn with his little force push, he jumped out the window and started living as a nomad right then.
Yeah, that works. I think that could be. But again, then, he should have no reason to think that Thrawn is dead. So he should be a little bit concerned that Sabine made it to him, knowing that Thrawn is also able to escape now, too.
Yes, I agree. That's the basis of it. And he clearly knows he's alive, because that Star Destroyer is not small.
Yeah.
And so clearly when he was docking by the Eye of Sion or whatnot, Ezra, it was not that far. He clearly saw that coming in. That thing is massive.
Yeah. I'm ready to start thinking predictions for next week and ready to be hopelessly mistaken, but I'm thinking that there's going to be some sort of like Thrawn and company leave, and then Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine end up taking Baylan and Shin-Hati back to the other galaxy.
I'm on that with that as well. And I don't know why, but I have a feeling that Ahsoka is going to sense that goodness in Baylan. Or maybe it's going to be unwillingly, because they don't want... Because whatever affects in both galaxies, they can affect each other. The Eye of Sion now is built. And so if they can build it, someone else can build it, which means those galaxies are not ever going to be fully separated, right? There's the chance of going back.
Well, they destroyed
But
the map.
it's the map, yeah.
That's true. But
either
way.
You can take the Purrgil. But that's kind of a Jedi thing. But I think it's going to be like what Baylan said about the Notskin Raiders, that the enemy of my enemy is my friend for now. I think that's going to come up with Ahsoka and co. And
I think so too.
That's how they're going to get back.
I just mean, like, even Ahsoka, like, there's no way she can, like, leave Baylan there knowing that he could potentially create something worse or something terrible in this galaxy and then potentially make his way back at some point.
Yeah, it raises a lot of questions from a meta perspective, because we know that Ahsoka is on her way here. So, Luke, you were talking about using this planet as like a pit stop to bring him back to the galaxy. I feel like this season might end with a cliffhanger of Thrawn returning to the galaxy. Something is going to go down on Peridia, because we have this army. Ahsoka's on her way. Ezra and Sabine are here. It would be kind of just like a weird beat to have everyone just like, okay, up and leave to this home galaxy and then just continue their beef there. Like, something has to go down here, and I don't know what it's going to be, because Ahsoka isn't bringing an army.
Everyone's not making it back. Whether it's Baylan or Shin, I assume it's going to be maybe Baylan. I just don't see everybody making it back.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I also feel like if you use the Purrgil to get back to the other galaxy, it's kind of treating them like a taxi when it should be like a very mystical, mysterious kind of thing. Yeah. So I wonder if maybe they won't even take the Purrgil back.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they can be taken prisoner. I mean, there's a lot of options. I mean, they wouldn't be taken prisoner because they could just leave them. That is a better option than taking anybody prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
So this episode ends with Ahsoka coming back. Thrawn obviously knows that it's Ahsoka because he's always the pragmatic one, the one who's always level-headed, and he starts making started making accommodations or whatever, and he asked the Night Sisters for, what do you say? He said, I require one last favor, one more favor or something.
I need to use your dark magic again.
Yeah.
He said dark magic, I think.
Was that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think that is?
I have no idea. I mean, we've seen Night Sister magic in the Clone Wars, but there's no reason to believe this is going to be even similar. I mean, this is a whole nother galaxy. Like, we know they descend from the same place, but, like, humans and apes descended from the same place. They could be completely different. They could use the Force in a completely different manner.
I have honestly zero idea what it could be. I mean, it's not resurrecting. I don't know what it could be. Literally.
And that's what makes Thrawn so freaky, right? Because He's a tactician. He's the man with the plan, and no one knows what that is.
I just see a row of TIE fighters that I'm excited to see in use, hopefully, in the next couple episodes as well.
Oh, man, yeah.
But what are they going to use that against, though? Because, like I said, Ahsoka's not bringing an army with her unless Ezra is leading an entire rebellion on this planet of all these turtle people.
Not even in this galaxy. I feel like once they're in the next galaxy, they're just going to unleash just kind of hell.
Yeah, because the New Republic fleet is hanging out at the off-ramp for the route from this galaxy to the other. So they're going to get back to the other galaxy. The New Republic fleet's going to be sitting there.
Oh,
that's going to be a slaughter.
That's going to be a great space battle.
They will not be ready for this.
No. Jason, who's like 8 years old, is just be hanging out, being like, I sent something.
No, they went back to Coruscant. They're safe.
Oh, yeah. Carson, though. No, Carson also went back, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank God. No chance of him being annoying again.
I think it's just a bunch of people in red shirts and shiny ships ready for slaughter.
And then Zeb shows up the one time we see him on screen. Dead.
So this show's almost over. This was episode 6 of 8.
And I loved it because the stakes feel so high every episode.
Mm-hmm.
And every episode we're waiting. I love when we watch Mandalorian, and I love when we watch Boba Fett and Kenobi. Kenobi's a little different, but because it's a more continuous story through the whole thing. But it's like, I'm excited to see what happens this week when we watch Mando. But this is like, man, we were theorizing of what's going to happen next week, right? We're theorizing because we have this overarching show. And I love every single minute of it. And I know it's because we love Rebels, and I'm very interested in having somebody have not seen Rebels or Clone Wars watch this show and see their perspective. Because I haven't talked to anybody that has done that yet. Have you? Have you guys?
Yeah, my wife hasn't watched the animated shows, and she's watching this. She likes it. She had a lot of questions about the World Between Worlds last week, but she just took it in stride. She was like, oh, is this like a Force Heaven? And I was like, no, not exactly. She's like, oh, is it like Force Space? Yeah,
it's World Between Worlds. It's more of a Force Purgatory.
Yeah, that's exactly what you should do. Because I've had some conversations and people are really like not interested in it because they haven't seen Rebels and they think it's an insane thing. But I think that's the thing is that like when you're a Star Wars fan or a fan of anything, you're presumably inhaling this content when it's coming out. And worst case scenario, if I was a very avid, less intense Star Wars fan than I am. If I saw Ahsoka, I would watch the first 2 episodes and be like, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to watch everything that's animated that led up to this point. Because it's super intriguing. And if this is intriguing, what happens before and how do I get that connection to these characters? Or worst case scenario, I think you watch this and you enjoy it and you're more intrigued. And you don't have to have that background knowledge, I guess. And again, it's just going to make it more worth it. Again, we always talk about what order you should watch the Star Wars movies in. We've been talking about this. I feel like I've recommended a lot of people of how to watch those movies specifically, and it is kind of tough because it's like, what's going to actually grab your attention? I was just talking to our friend James Begin about this, and because he wants to listen to this podcast because he has 2-3 friends on it and does not like Star Wars, and so it's like, he's like, how can I listen to the podcast? I'm like, well, you should probably watch some Star Wars or just listen to it for fun. But it's like, it's hard to, like, I know what's going to grab your attention more, but then I have the reason, or what I think is the correct answer to start watching, just so you can kind of get into that fandom.
I know. At the end of the day, I think it's just doing it. Just watch it. Yeah. That's what I always say when people ask me, like, if they should watch Clone Wars or Rebels. I'm like, yeah, and just skip the first season or 2. Like, I know you're not going to watch it if you start at the beginning. Just watch it. Just watch the good parts. Just watch whatever part you want, and you'll get what you get. If you end up loving it, you can go back and watch the parts that will give it more context. And I think that's what's going to happen with Ahsoka, because a lot of people are going to watch Ahsoka and then they'll go back and watch Rebels and Clone Wars.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
There's so much to Clone Wars, though, that would be such a crazy perspective to watch Ahsoka and, like, right now, like, looking at Thrawn and this army of the undead and then being like, oh, you got to watch Clone Wars and Rebels to understand this, and then going back to watch, like, the first episode of Clone Wars and being like, so this is required reading for this, huh? And it's like, well, it evolves over the entire series, but yeah, it'll get there. But yeah, it's crazy. And it's so cool, though, that this is really the first time I feel like in Star Wars where they're really starting to dive deep into something that, I don't want to say like real fans or true fans or anything like that, but like the fans of all the animated shows absolutely love, because it is a little bit harder for somebody to get into this, I feel like, who hasn't seen Rebels or Clone Wars. But this is like the first time that Star Wars has done this. Like, this is like I feel like we're finally being paid off for watching us Clone Wars and Rebels and everything. They're saying like, okay, like this is for you guys, and everything else has been like a jumping on point. Like anyone can watch Kenobi, like if just seeing the original trilogy, you can jump into that. Mandalorian is a jumping on point. Everything is a easy jumping on point. This is the first one that seems to be like more of like a deep dive.
And that's not even to say paid off because the ending of Clone Wars or Rebels was bad or anything. It's just Rebels ends on a massive cliffhanger.
No, they all end incredibly. Yeah.
It's tough. I don't have anything else to say on this episode, I don't think. Does anybody... I don't worry. I was going to ask for first thought. I was just going to say I don't want to wrap it up too quick unless anybody else had anything to say.
No, I don't think I have any closing notes. I got everything I wrote down out there. Looking at this still image of the undead army, allegedly undead army with Thrawn.
No, we're hanging our hat on it.
I think it reminds me of all those memes about how they introduce all these new trooper designs just to sell more toys. And that they were just completely out of ideas, and Dave Filoni is just tossing up a roll of red tape in his office, thinking like, I don't know, and then he catches it and it like falls on a stormtrooper. I'm like, hey, wrap him in red tape, okay.
I like where your head's thinking, kid.
Let's just agree right now that this is an army of the undead, because I'm already annoyed by all the articles that are coming out over the next week being like, so what's the deal with Thrawn's army? And then it's going to be like talking about how like this is like such an idea, and it's like, well, no, I feel like they pretty obviously hinted at what's going on here.
The worst part of this show is the articles that come after from Screen Rant and all these other places that are just like, you won't believe this episode, or Star Wars fans are upset, or Ahsoka breaks the one rule George Lucas said not to break. It's
sometimes I worry you guys don't know what clickbait is. You are their ideal reader.
I know it's clickbait, but it upsets me to no end that it's just like, no, stop it.
It's social engineering. That's what they do. People like say all these things that you know are wrong because they want to be corrected, because that gets them more clicks. Like I saw this one theory that Shin Hati is Captain Phasma, and I'm like,
God, I know.
No, that literally cannot be. Captain Phasma has an entire backstory in a book that definitely confirms this is not the case.
But that's the worst. It's like, I know it's clickbait, but the worst part is, again, that information is out there.
Yeah.
And it's just the laziness to do it, or like
It's not the lazy. It's the willful disobedience to follow what is already written,
but
just to get clicks out of people like you.
But it's the people that are
seeing it. I don't click it
though. It's the other people that are reading that headline that don't know as much,
yeah.
and they're going like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't know that." And it's like, "No, you're wrong. You were just misinformed."
Yes. Or it's just the person that's getting paid 80 cents a word for an article or something. That's like, that needs to bulk up this stupid story. That is so frustrating to be like, and then not doing any research.
Yeah, that's how people
potentially.
That's how fans like my barber, who I hope isn't listening to this right now, say things to me as I'm getting my hair cut, like how George Lucas is going to come back to Lucasfilm and they're going to retcon the entire sequel trilogy, and Yoda is going to be revealed to be the big bad of everything. And it's like, I don't have time to explain how all of that is not true.
I know. It's unfortunate to have... I've never been in the position to say it's unfortunate to be like smart or something, so I'm just gonna say it. And it's unfortunate to have this knowledge, I guess, because in any other aspect of my life, it's like, no, I'm sure I'm wrong.
As I'm sure we just said a bunch of things, a lot of speculation that's gonna age poorly as soon as more information's revealed in Ahsoka.
I'm okay with that. Does anybody have any force for thought?
Yes, I do. It came to me during this episode of Ahsoka, in the one scene with Ahsoka, in the prelude with Ahsoka and Huyang in the ship. Did you notice Huyang keeps his hands on the space steering wheel the whole time? And I thought, that's awkward. Like, why don't you take a load off, relax? But do droids need to? Is it just as comfortable for him to keep holding on? Will he keep holding on until something else that requires his hands requires him to let go?
To be fair,
it looked so unnatural, but then it really got me thinking, like, well, is it unnatural?
If he also has 2 other arms and hands that he has not used, so those are chilling. So when you have 4 arms, with that being said, I think that relaxation is a thing for droids, because they wouldn't take oil baths if not, presumably.
Yeah, well, that like lubricates their joints and stuff.
Could feel great though.
Is it a sensation thing? Do they have
Maybe.
sensations? Yeah, because that droid in Return of the Jedi is getting branded, that gonk droid in
Yes.
Jabba's palace.
No.
Yeah. So Huyang's just built different, I guess.
He's built different.
He's
I'm
just
trying to
tough.
think. I'm
He's
trying
being
to think
responsible. He has 20,000 years of experience. He knows something that other ones don't.
That's true. Anything could happen at any moment. He's like, keep your hand on the wheel.
10 and 2. Even if you're flying in a space whale to a different galaxy, you never know.
Yeah, I'm not trusting that space whale.
But like when you picture C-3PO and he's talking, he always has his hands kind of like in that little karate chop motion, and he's very animated with it and everything. But like, what's the alternative? Like, think of Hu Yang just sitting there. Like, what's he doing with his hands if he's doesn't have them on the wheel?
I know. They sometimes like emote with their hands to help communicate better, but I guess you didn't need to in that particular conversation. But
it helps that Hu Yang has the eyes that can kind of open and shut a little bit.
It does.
It helps with the emoting.
Also, one last little bit. We watched this episode with your guys' dad, the one and only Sammy, who I always say sign off because he was like our first listener. And I'm super glad, A, he's going to listen to this episode, and B, I'm super glad that he talks through things as much as I do. And just adds commentary just like I do. I felt not alone this episode.
Yeah, you both certainly do that.
I will say this. I don't think I do it as loud, but I do it. I think they're all funny.
I have one more note to add, topical to this episode. I remember, Max, you and I talked years ago about all these comic books you have on your wall. You have a collection of all of the Marvel Comics issue 1s. And I remember I said years ago that Thrawn issue 1 might go up in value once Thrawn comes to live action. And that day has finally come.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to check that tomorrow.
Yeah.
I bet it's double, triple, 20 times what it was yesterday.
Yeah, that's true. I might have to put that one in one of my good cases.
I might steal it.
Yeah, right off the wall. There'll be a huge blank space right there. I'll be like, wasn't there something there yesterday? All right. Well, let us know what you think. Let us know what you thought of Ahsoka Episode 6, what you think is coming down the pike in Episode 7 and 8. You can reach out to us. Find us across social media at Force for Thought on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. And give us, just talk to us, man. I lost it.
Give a thumbs up. Say hi. Keep commenting on our stupid videos. I can't say that.
Yeah,
I mean, they're fun,
yeah.
but I don't make them, so I can't.
Like, subscribe, do whatever you can. Give us a rating wherever you're listening to us. It really helps the podcast go a long way.
Yeah. Love you guys. See you, Sammy.